Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a gripping true crime story that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. It's a tale of mystery, heartbreak, and hope, set in a small American town where one sunny day changed everything. If you love stories that mix emotion with suspense, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss a single part of this journey. Let's get started. The sun blazed over Willow Creek, California on July 4th, 2005. The small town buzzed with excitement. It was Independence Day, and the public pool was the heart of the celebration. Kids splashed in the water, parents lounged with iced drinks, and American flags fluttered in the breeze. The air smelled of sunscreen and hot dogs, and pop music blared from a radio by the lifeguard stand. For most folks, it was the perfect summer day, but for one group, it was the day their lives would change forever. Sarah Bennett, a 32-year-old gym teacher at Willow Creek High, stood by the pool's edge. Her ponytail bounced as she clapped her hands, rallying her 6 students. "All right, girls, stick together, okay? It's a zoo out here," she called, her voice warm but firm. Sarah loved her job. She wasn't just a teacher. She was a mentor, a cheerleader for her kids. Today, she'd brought 6 of her favorite students for a fun day at the pool, a reward for acing their finals. The girls, all 15 and 16, were as different as could be, but they were tight. Emily Carter was the group's leader, bold and confident, always ready to dive into the deep end. Chloe Nguyen was quieter, sticking close to Emily, her best friend. Mia Johnson was the brainy one, always thinking 2 steps ahead. Lily Parker was the jokester, splashing everyone with a grin. Ava Thompson dreamed of being an artist, sketching in her notebook even at the pool, and Sophia Ruiz was the glue, strong and steady, keeping everyone grounded. "Miss Bennett, can we race to the slide?" Emily asked, her eyes sparkling. "Go for it, but stay where I can see you," Sarah replied, adjusting her sunglasses. The girls laughed and splashed, their voices blending with the crowd's noise. Sarah kept an eye on them, but the pool was packed. Families, teens, and toddlers filled every inch of the water. Lifeguards blew whistles, and parents shouted for their kids to slow down. It was chaos, but the happy kind, or so Sarah thought. Around noon, the girls were taking a break, sprawled on towels by the snack bar. Sarah bought them lemonades, joking about their terrible dance moves at the last school pep rally. "Miss Bennett, you're worse than us," Lily teased, and everyone burst out laughing. For a moment, it felt like nothing could go wrong. Then, chaos struck. Chloe, who'd gone back to the shallow end, started flailing. "Miss Bennett, my leg," she gasped, clutching her calf. Sarah sprinted over, dodging kids and pool floats. "Hold on, Chloe, I got you," she said, pulling her to the edge. It was just a cramp, but it took a few minutes to calm Chloe down. Sarah rubbed her leg, making sure she was okay. "You're fine, kiddo. Just rest for a bit," she said, giving Chloe a reassuring smile. But when Sarah turned back to check on the others, her heart sank. Emily was standing by the diving board, looking around, but Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia were gone. "Emily, where's everyone else?" Sarah called, her voice sharper than she meant. "They were right here," Emily said, scanning the crowd. "Maybe they went to the slide." Sarah's stomach twisted. She told Chloe to stay put and jogged toward the slide, Emily trailing behind. "Mia! Lily! Ava! Sophia!" she shouted, her voice drowned out by the noise. She checked the slide, the snack bar, the bathrooms. Nothing. Her pulse raced as she pushed through the crowd, her eyes darting from face to face. No sign of them. "Miss Bennett, what's going on?" Emily asked, her confidence fading. "I don't know, Em. Let's keep looking," Sarah said, trying to stay calm. She grabbed a lifeguard, a lanky teen with a whistle. "Have you seen 4 girls, about 15 together? One's got a red swimsuit, another's in a blue cap?" "Nah, it's too crazy today," he shrugged. "Check the locker room?" Sarah ran to the women's locker room, her sneakers squeaking on the wet tiles. "Girls, you in here?" she called. The room was empty except for a mom changing a toddler's diaper. No Mia, no Lily, no Ava, no Sophia. Back outside, Sarah found Chloe still by the shallow end, her eyes wide. "Did you find them?" Chloe asked. "Not yet," Sarah said, her voice tight. She pulled out her phone and called the girls' parents, starting with Laura Carter, Emily's mom. "Laura, it's Sarah. Is Mia home? Or the others?" "No." "Why? Aren't they with you?" Laura's voice was sharp with worry. One by one, Sarah called the other families. None of the girls were home. By now the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows over the pool. The crowd was thinning, but the girls were nowhere to be found. Sarah's hands shook as she dialed 911. "I need help." "4 of my students are missing at the Willow Creek pool," she said, her voice breaking. Within minutes, police cars pulled up, their lights flashing red and blue. Officers swarmed the pool, questioning Sarah, Emily, and Chloe. "When did you last see them?" a cop asked, notepad in hand. "About an hour ago, near the diving board," Sarah said, her mind racing. "I was helping Chloe, and then they were gone." Laura arrived, her face pale. "Sarah, what happened? Where's my daughter?" she demanded. "I don't know, Laura. I'm so sorry," Sarah said, tears stinging her eyes. As the police taped off the pool, Sarah stood frozen, watching families pack up and leave. The music had stopped, and the flags hung limp in the evening breeze. Emily and Chloe clung to each other, whispering the girls' names like a prayer. Sarah's chest tightened with guilt. She was supposed to keep them safe. How could she lose? 4 kids in the blink of an eye? The cops promised to search all night, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As she drove home, the town felt different, darker, like it was hiding a secret. She pulled into her driveway, sat in her car, and buried her face in her hands. "Please, let them be okay," she whispered, but deep down she knew this was just the beginning. The morning after the 4th of July, Willow Creek woke up to a nightmare. The sun rose over the quiet town, but the air felt heavy, like the whole place was holding its breath. Sarah Bennett hadn't slept. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at her cold coffee, replaying the day before. The girls' laughter, their splashing in the pool. The moment she turned away to help Chloe, it all looped in her head. How could Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia just vanish? Her phone buzzed with texts from parents, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. The guilt was crushing her. By 8 a.m., the Willow Creek police station was a madhouse. Parents crowded the lobby, their voices sharp with fear. Laura Carter, Emily's mom, stood at the front, her arms crossed. "My daughter's out there, and you're just sitting here?" she snapped at an officer. Laura was a force, tall, with a voice that could silence a room. She'd already called every parent in town, organizing a search party. Emily and Chloe were there too, their eyes red from crying. They clung to Laura, whispering about where their friends might be. Sarah dragged herself to the station, her stomach in knots. As she walked in, heads turned. Some parents glared, others looked away. She felt like a criminal. "Sarah, what happened?" asked Mia's dad, his voice breaking. "You were supposed to watch them." "I'm so sorry," Sarah mumbled, her throat tight. "I don't know how this happened." Detective Tom Harris, a gruff man with a buzz cut, took charge. He gathered Sarah, Emily, and Chloe in a small room. "Tell me everything from the start," he said, flipping open a notepad. Sarah recounted the day, arriving at the pool, the girls swimming, Chloe's cramp, the moment she realized the others were gone. Emily chimed in, her voice shaky. "They were by the diving board. I thought they went to get snacks or something." Chloe, barely audible, added, "I saw them laughing before I got the cramp. Then—" "Nothing," Harris scribbled notes. "Any strangers hanging around? Anyone acting weird?" Sarah shook her head. "It was so crowded. I didn't see anything." But then she paused, remembering a fleeting moment. A man in a baseball cap near the snack bar, watching the girls. She hadn't thought much of it at the time. "There was this guy," she said slowly. "But I don't know. It's probably nothing." "Everything's something until we rule it out," Harris said. "Describe him." Sarah tried, but the details were fuzzy. Tall, maybe? Wearing a cap? I only saw him for a second. Outside, the town was mobilizing. Laura had rallied dozens of volunteers, neighbors, teachers, even local shop owners. They fanned out across Willow Creek, taping missing posters to telephone poles and storefronts. The posters showed smiling photos of Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia, their names in bold red letters. Last seen July 4th, Willow Creek Pool, the text read. Call with any information. By noon, the search party hit the streets. Volunteers combed the park near the pool, checked alleys, and knocked on doors. "Have you seen these girls?" they asked, holding up flyers. Kids on bikes rode through neighborhoods calling the girls names. Sarah joined the search, her sneakers pounding the pavement. "Mia! Lily!" she shouted, her voice hoarse. Every empty street felt like a punch to the gut. Back at the pool, police officers searched every inch. They drained part of the shallow end, looking for clues, and scoured the locker rooms. The security cameras were a bust. The footage was grainy, showing only a sea of people. "This place is a mess," one officer muttered. "No wonder they lost track of those kids." Detective Harris questioned the pool staff. The head lifeguard, a guy named Jake, shrugged. "It was crazy yesterday. I didn't see anything weird." The pool manager, Victor Hayes, was more polished, a middle-aged man with a slick smile. "We're doing everything we can to help," he said, handing over a list of employees. But something about Victor's calm demeanor made Harris's gut twist. He jotted down a note. Check Hayes' background. That evening, Laura went on the local news. Standing outside the pool, she held up a photo of the girls. "These are our daughters," she said, her voice steady but fierce. "Mia, Lily, Ava, Sophia. They're out there somewhere. If you know anything, please come forward. We're not giving up." The camera zoomed in on her face, catching the tears she was fighting back. Sarah watched the broadcast from her living room, curled up on the couch. The guilt was eating her alive. She kept seeing the girls' faces, Mia's quick smile, Lily's goofy laugh, Ava's shy glances, Sophia's steady gaze. "I should have been watching," she whispered to herself. Her phone rang. Laura's? Name on the screen? Sarah hesitated, then answered. "Sarah, we're meeting at the church tomorrow to plan the next search," Laura said. "You need to be there." "I don't know if I can face everyone," Sarah admitted. "You owe it to the girls," Laura said, her tone softening. "We're in this together." The next day the church was packed. Parents, volunteers, and even the mayor showed up. Laura stood at the front, mapping out search zones. Sarah slipped in late, sitting in the back. Whispers followed her. "She's the teacher who lost them." She kept her head down, but Laura caught her eye and nodded, a small gesture of support. Detective Harris gave an update. "We're following every lead," he said. "We've got divers checking the creek and dogs sweeping the woods, but we need more eyes out there." He didn't mention the man in the cap. Sarah's vague tip hadn't panned out yet. As the meeting ended, Sarah approached Harris. "Anything new?" she asked quietly. He sighed. "Not much. No witnesses, no evidence. It's like they vanished into thin air." Sarah's heart sank. "They're not gone," she said, more to herself than to him. "They can't be." Days turned into weeks. The search parties grew smaller, the news coverage faded. The missing posters started to curl at the edges, their colors bleaching under the sun. Sarah went out every day, walking the same streets, calling the girls' names, until her throat burned. But the town was moving on. Kids went back to school, shops reopened, and the pool filled up again like nothing had happened. One night, Sarah drove to the pool after hours. The gate was locked, but she stood outside, staring at the dark water. The silence was deafening. "Where are you?" she whispered, her breath fogging in the cool air. She thought about the man in the cap, Victor's slick smile, the chaos of that day. Something wasn't right. She could feel it in her bones. As she turned to leave, a chill ran down her spine. The pool wasn't just a place anymore. It was a mystery, hiding secrets she couldn't yet see. And somewhere out there, 4 girls were waiting to be found. The Willow Creek pool stood silent under the moonlight, its still water reflecting the stars. Sarah Bennett lingered outside the locked gate, her breath visible in the cool night air. She couldn't shake the feeling that this place held answers. The memory of that chaotic 4th of July gnawed at her. The girls' laughter, the man in the baseball cap, Victor Hayes' too smooth smile. Something was off, and she wasn't ready to let it go. As she drove home, the town's quiet streets felt like they were whispering secrets, daring her to listen. By late July 2005, Willow Creek was a town divided. Some folks clung to hope, still searching for Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia. Others whispered that the girls had run away or met a darker fate. The missing posters, now faded and tattered, were a constant reminder of the mystery no one could solve. For Sarah, every day was a battle against guilt. She'd stopped teaching, unable to face the gym where she'd coached the girls. Instead, she spent her days retracing their steps, hoping for a clue. At the police station, Detective Tom Harris was drowning in dead ends. His desk was buried under files, witness statements, grainy camera footage, maps of the search zones. He'd interviewed every lifeguard, vendor, and regular at the pool. Nothing added up. It's like they walked off the face of the earth, he told his partner, rubbing his tired eyes. But Harris wasn't giving up. He kept circling back to Sarah's vague tip about the man in the cap. It was thin, but it was something. One morning, Harris called Sarah to the station. "We're going over the pool footage again," he said, pointing to a laptop. "Anything you recognize?" The video was a mess. Pixelated faces, blurry motion. Sarah squinted, her heart racing. Then she froze. There, in the corner of the frame, was a man in a cap, standing near the diving board. He was watching the girls, his posture too still, too focused. "That's him," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "That's the guy I saw," Harris leaned in. "You sure?" "Not 100%, Sarah admitted, "but he was there. I know it." Harris marked the timestamp. "We'll try to clean up the image. Maybe we can ID him." Meanwhile, Laura Carter was keeping the town's hope alive. She'd turned her garage into a command center, filled with maps, flyers, and a whiteboard tracking leads. Every evening, she hosted meetings for volunteers. "We're not stopping," she told the group, her voice fierce. "My daughter and her friends are out there." Emily and Chloe came to every meeting, their faces pale but determined. They handed out new posters, their hands shaking as they stapled them to poles. "We should have stayed together," Chloe whispered to Emily one night. "Don't do that," Emily said, squeezing her hand. "We'll find them." Sarah showed up to Laura's meetings, though she felt like an outsider. Parents still shot her cold looks, blaming her for losing the girls. But Laura was different. "You're here now," she told Sarah. "That's what matters." Laura's strength pulled Sarah through, even on her worst days. One afternoon, Harris got a tip from a pool regular, an old man who swam laps every morning. "That manager, Victor Hayes, he's always in and out of the storage room," the man said. "Seemed odd for a guy who's supposed to be running the place." Harris's gut pinged again. He'd already looked into Victor, clean record, no red flags, but the guy's name kept popping up. Harris sent officers to check the pool's storage room. It was a cramped, dusty space behind the locker rooms, filled with old floats and cleaning supplies. At first it looked normal, but one cop noticed a loose floorboard. Underneath, they found a small plastic bag with white powder. "Get this to the lab," Harris ordered. The test came back fast. Methamphetamine. "This changes everything," Harris told his team. A drug stash at the pool could mean a bigger operation and a reason someone might want 4 girls to disappear. He pulled Victor in for questioning. Victor sat in the interrogation room, his suit crisp, his smile unshaken. "I have no idea how that got there," he said. "Anyone could have hidden it." "You spend a lot of time in that storage room," Harris pressed. "It's my job to check supplies," Victor shot back. Harris didn't have enough to hold him, so Victor walked. But the detective wasn't fooled. He put a tail on Victor, hoping he'd slip up. "If he's dirty, we'll catch him," Harris told Sarah when she called for an update. "What about the girls?" she asked. "We're still looking," he said, but his voice was heavy. Sarah couldn't sit still. She started hanging around the pool, watching the staff, listening to conversations. One day she overheard a lifeguard muttering about Victor's side business. When she tried to ask more, the kid clammed up. Sarah told Harris, who added it to his growing file on Victor. As August rolled in, the search efforts dwindled. The creek had been dragged, the woods combed, and every tip chased down. Nothing. The national news picked up the story briefly, calling it the Willow Creek Mystery, but soon moved on to bigger headlines. Sarah felt the town slipping back to normal, like the girls were being forgotten. One evening she went to Laura's garage. The whiteboard was covered in notes, but the leads were drying up. Laura stood alone, staring at a photo of the girls. "I can't lose her," she said, her voice breaking. Sarah put a hand on her shoulder. "We won't," she said, though she wasn't sure she believed it. That night, Sarah had a dream. She was back at the pool, the girls laughing in the water. But when she called their names, they sank beneath the surface, their faces fading into the dark. She woke up gasping, her cheeks wet with tears. "I'm not giving up," she told herself, clenching her fists. The next day she drove to the police station, determined to push Harris harder. "What's next?" she demanded. He sighed. "We're watching Victor, but it's slow. These things take time." "Time?" Sarah snapped. "Those girls don't have time." As she left the station, her phone buzzed. It was Laura. "Sarah, get to the church. We've got a new lead." Sarah's heart leaped. She sped across town, hope flickering for the first time in weeks. At the church, Laura was waiting, her eyes bright with urgency. "Someone saw a van near the pool that day," she said. "It matches one Victor owns." Sarah's blood ran cold. The pool wasn't just a crime scene, it was the key to everything, and Victor Hayes was at the center of it. Sarah Bennett's heart raced as she pulled into the church parking lot in Willow Creek. Laura Carter's call about a new lead, a van tied to Victor Hayes, the pool manager, had lit a spark of hope. It was late August 2005, and the town was starting to move on from the disappearance of Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia. But for Sarah, Laura, and the girls' families, giving up wasn't an option. The church was buzzing when Sarah walked in. Volunteers huddled around Laura, who held a notebook like it was a lifeline. "Tell me everything," Sarah said, catching Laura's eye. Laura's voice was urgent. A neighbor saw a white van parked behind the pool on the 4th. It was there all day, but no one thought much of it. Turns out, Victor owns a van just like it. Sarah's stomach twisted. "You think he's involved?" "I don't know," Laura said, "but it's the best lead we've got." They took the information to Detective Tom Harris, who was already stretched thin. His office smelled of stale coffee, and his desk was a mess of files. "A van's not much to go on," he said, rubbing his neck. "Lots of people have white vans." "But it was Victor's," Laura pushed, "and you found drugs at the pool. That's not a coincidence." Harris sighed. "We're watching him, but we need hard evidence. I'll check the van's registration and pull any traffic cam footage from that day." Sarah and Laura left the station, frustrated but determined. "If the cops won't move fast, we will," Laura said, her jaw set. Sarah nodded, though guilt still gnawed at her. She hadn't protected the girls that day, but she could fight for them now. The next morning, they met at Laura's garage, the unofficial headquarters for the search. Emily and Chloe were there, stapling fresh, missing posters. The girls looked older than their 16 years, their eyes shadowed by worry. "Miss Bennett, do you think they're okay?" Chloe asked softly. Sarah forced a smile. "We're going to find them, Chloe, I promise." But the words felt hollow. Laura had tracked down the neighbor who saw the van, an older woman named Mrs. Jenkins. They visited her house, a tidy bungalow with a rose garden. Mrs. Jenkins poured them tea, her hands shaky. "I saw that van behind the pool all day," she said. "It was parked by the back gate near the storage room. I thought it was a delivery or something." "Did you see anyone with it?" Sarah asked. "A man, maybe. He was wearing a cap, kept his head down. I didn't get a good look." Sarah's pulse quickened. The man in the cap again. She'd mentioned him to Harris weeks ago, but the blurry pool footage hadn't helped. Now, he was tied to Victor's van. "We need to see that van," she told Laura as they left. Laura nodded. "Victor's at the pool most days. Let's check his place tonight." That evening, they drove to Victor's house on the edge of town. It was a plain ranch-style home with a neatly trimmed lawn that felt too perfect. The white van was parked in the driveway, its paint chipped but clean. Sarah and Laura stayed in the car, watching from across the street. "Looks normal," Sarah whispered. "Too normal," Laura said. "Guys like him don't leave evidence lying around." They didn't dare get closer, but Sarah snapped a photo of the van's license plate with her phone. She sent it to Harris, along with a message. "This is Victor's van. Check it out." Harris texted back, "On it. Stay out of trouble." Days passed with no news. Sarah kept busy, joining search parties and handing out flyers, but the town's energy was fading. Shops took down the missing posters, and kids stopped talking about the girls at school. Sarah overheard a cashier at the grocery store say, "They're probably long gone by now." The words hit her like a slap. At home, Sarah's life was unraveling. She'd moved out of her apartment, unable to afford rent without her teaching job. She was crashing on her sister's couch, surrounded by boxes of her old life. One night, she found a photo of her and the girls at a school dance, all smiles and silly poses. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tracing their faces. Laura wasn't faring much better. She'd taken leave from her job to focus on the search, and the strain was showing. At one of their garage meetings, she snapped at a volunteer who suggested scaling back. "My daughter is not a lost cause," she shouted, then stormed out. Sarah followed her to the backyard where Laura was pacing. "I can't keep doing this," Laura admitted, her voice breaking. "What if we never find them?" Sarah grabbed her shoulders. "We will. We have to." Harris finally called with an update. "The van's registered to Victor, but it's clean. No tickets, no red flags. We're still digging into the drug angle." "What about the storage room?" Sarah asked. "Any more drugs?" "We're watching the pool, but Victor's careful. He knows we're on to him." Sarah's frustration boiled over. She started driving by the pool daily, noting Victor's routine. He arrived early, left late, and always checked the storage room. One day she saw him talking to a man in a cap, the same build as the guy from the pool footage. Their conversation looked tense, and Victor handed the man a small bag before they split. Sarah's hand shook as she called Harris. "I saw Victor with the cap guy. They're up to something. Don't play detective," Harris warned. "You could mess up our case." But Sarah couldn't stop. She felt like she was failing. The girls all over again. At Laura's next meeting, she shared what she'd seen. "Victor's hiding something," she said. "That van, the drugs, the man in the cap, it's all connected." Laura's eyes lit up. "Then we keep pushing. We'll tail Victor ourselves if we have to." They started watching Victor's movements, taking turns parked near the pool. Emily and Chloe begged to help, but Laura shut them down. "You're kids. This is too dangerous." Still, the girls snuck out one night, biking to the pool to spy. They saw Victor load a box into his van under cover of darkness. Emily texted Sarah a blurry photo. "What's he doing?" the message read. Sarah showed the photo to Harris, who was furious. "You're going to get those kids hurt," he barked. But he admitted the photo was useful. "We're building a case, but it's slow. Victor's slippery." By September, Willow Creek felt like a ghost town for the girls' families. The search parties were down to a handful of diehards. Laura's garage was quieter, the whiteboard untouched. Sarah kept going, but her hope was fading. She visited the pool one last time, standing by the gate as the first fall leaves drifted down. "I won't forget you," she whispered, picturing the girls' faces. As she turned to leave, her phone rang. It was Harris. "Sarah, we've got something. Meet me at the station, now." Her heart pounded as she raced across town. Whatever Harris had found, it was big, and it might finally lead them to the truth. Sarah Bennett's old sedan screeched into the Willow Creek police station parking lot, her heart hammering. Detective Tom Harris's call had been short but urgent. "We've got something. Meet me at the station, now." It was September 2005, and the trail for Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia had gone cold. The town was moving on, but Sarah, Laura Carter, and the girls' families were still fighting. As Sarah rushed inside, she clung to a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the break they needed. The station was quiet, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Harris was waiting in his office, his face grim but focused. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to a chair. Laura was already there, her hands clasped tight, her eyes locked on Harris. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, her voice shaky. Harris slid a photo across the desk. It was a grainy still from a traffic camera, showing Victor Hayes's white van on a back road near the pool, time-stamped July 4th, 2005, at 2 p.m., right around when the girls vanished. "We pulled this from a camera a mile from the pool," Harris said. "Victor told us he was at the pool all day, but this puts him on the move." Laura leaned forward. "So he lied. What's he hiding?" "That's not all," Harris said. He opened a file and pulled out a lab report. "We tested more samples. From the pool's storage room, found traces of meth again, plus some chemical precursors, stuff used to cook it. Victor's got access to that room, and his name's all over the employee logs." Sarah's mind raced. The drugs, the van, the man in the cap, it was starting to add up. "You think Victor took the girl?" she asked. Harris held up a hand. "We don't have proof yet, but he's involved in something dirty, and we're closing in. I've got a team watching him 24/7. Laura's voice was steel. "If he hurt my daughter, I want him locked up for life." "We're working on it," Harris said. "But we need to be careful. If Victor's part of a bigger operation, spooking him could make things worse." Sarah left the station with Laura, her head spinning. The air outside was crisp, the first hint of fall settling over Willow Creek. "What now?" Sarah asked. "We keep digging," Laura said. "Harris is moving too slow. I'm not waiting for him to figure this out." Back at Laura's garage, the mood was tense but electric. The whiteboard was updated with the new lead. Victor's van, July 4th, 2 p.m. Emily and Chloe were there, listening as Laura briefed the volunteers. "We need eyes on Victor," Laura said. "Where he goes, who he talks to. Anything could lead us to the girls." Sarah hesitated. "Laura, Harris said to stay out of it. We could mess things up." Laura's eyes flashed. "My daughter's been gone for 2 months. I'm not sitting on my hands." Against her better judgment, Sarah agreed to help. They split up tasks. Laura would talk to more pool regulars, while Sarah would watch the pool's back entrance, where the van had been spotted. Emily and Chloe begged to join, but Laura shut them down. "You're staying safe," she said. No arguments. The next day, Sarah parked across from the pool, her car hidden behind a row of trees. She felt like a spy in a bad movie, but the stakes were too high to care. Around noon, Victor appeared, carrying a duffel bag to his van. He looked over his shoulder like he knew someone was watching. Sarah's hand shook as she snapped a photo and sent it to Harris. "Victor's moving something. Back entrance." "Harris," called her immediately. "Sarah, I told you to stay out of this. Go home." "He's up to something," she insisted. "I can't just sit here." "You're not a cop," Harris snapped. "You want to help? Let us do our job." Sarah drove away, frustrated but rattled. She stopped by Laura's to update her. "Victor's nervous," she said. "He knows they're watching him." "Good," Laura said. "Let him sweat. Maybe he'll slip up." But days turned into weeks, and Victor didn't slip. Harris's team followed him to meetings with shady types in nearby towns, but nothing tied directly to the girls. The van was searched, clean, no evidence. The storage room was locked down, but no new drugs turned up. Sarah felt like they were chasing ghosts. Her life was falling apart. Living on her sister's couch, she barely ate or slept. Every night she saw the girls in her dreams, their faces pleading for help. One morning, she found a note from her sister. "You need to move on, Sarah. This is killing you." But moving on felt like betraying the girls. Laura was struggling too. Her marriage was cracking under the strain, and she'd stopped going to work. At one garage meeting, she broke down, sobbing in front of the volunteers. "I can't lose her," she said, clutching a photo of Emily and her friends. Sarah hugged her, whispering, "We're still in this." The town's hope was nearly gone. The missing posters were torn or faded, replaced by fall festival flyers. Sarah overheard kids at the diner saying the girls probably ran off to L.A. It made her blood boil. She kept one poster in her car, taping it up wherever she went. "They're not forgotten," she told herself. One evening, Sarah visited the pool again. It was closed for the season, the water drained, the gates chained. She stood outside, staring at the empty diving board where she'd last seen the girls. "I'm still looking," she whispered, her voice breaking. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She answered, expecting a wrong call. Instead, a low voice said, "Stop poking around the pool, you're asking for trouble." The line went dead. Sarah froze, her heart pounding. Someone was watching her, someone who knew she was getting close. She called Harris, her hands trembling. "Someone just threatened me," she said, "and they told me to back off." Harris's tone was sharp. "Get to the station, now." Sarah drove through the dark streets, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. The threat meant they were onto something. Victor, the van, the drugs, it was all connected to the girls. She pulled into the station where Harris was waiting. "Tell me exactly what they said," he demanded. As she recounted the call, Laura burst in, her face pale. "Harris, you need to see this," she said, holding up a flyer she'd found at a gas station outside town. It was a grainy photo of a girl who looked like Mia, taken at a truck stop weeks ago. "Is this her?" Laura asked, her voice trembling. Harris studied the photo, his jaw tight. "It's possible. We'll check it out." Sarah and Laura exchanged a look. After months of dead ends, this was their first real clue. Mia might still be alive, and if she was, the others could be too. Sarah Bennett's hands trembled as she stood in the Willow Creek police station, staring at the flyer Laura Carter had thrust into Detective Tom Harris's hands. The grainy photo showed a girl who looked eerily like Mia Johnson, one of the 4 girls missing since July 4, 2005. The image was taken at a truck stop 50 miles outside town weeks ago. Laura's voice shook with hope and fear. "Is this her?" she asked again. Sarah's heart pounded. After months of dead ends, this could be the breakthrough they'd been praying for. Harris studied the flyer, his brow furrowed. "It's possible," he said, his tone cautious. "The resemblance is strong, but we need to verify." "Where'd you get this?" Laura explained. "A volunteer found it at a gas station near Route 17. Someone's been passing these out, asking if anyone's seen her." Harris nodded. "We'll send officers to the truck stop and pull any security footage. If this is Mia, it's our first solid lead." Sarah's mind raced. The threatening phone call she'd received just minutes ago, "Stop poking around the pool," echoed in her head. Someone didn't want them digging, and now this flyer appeared. It couldn't be a coincidence. "What about Victor Hayes?" she asked. "He's tied to the drugs, the van, and now this call. Is he connected to the truck stop?" "We're looking into it," Harris said, "but don't jump the gun. Stay safe and let us handle this." Laura's eyes blazed. "Safe? My daughter's out there, and someone's trying to scare us off." "We're not stopping," Sarah nodded, her resolve hardening. The guilt of losing the girls still weighed on her, but this lead gave her purpose. "We need to know if that's Mia," she said. They left the station, the October chill biting at their skin. Laura drove to her garage, where the search headquarters was quieter now, the volunteers dwindling. Emily and Chloe were waiting, their faces lighting up when they heard about the flyer. "Is it really Mia?" Emily asked, clutching Chloe's hand. "We don't know yet," Laura said, softening. "But it's a start." Sarah pulled Laura aside. "We can't just wait for Harris. That truck stop's not far. We could talk to people there, see if anyone remembers her." Laura hesitated. "Harris will lose it if we interfere." "He's moving too slow," Sarah said. "What if Mia's still there, or the others?" Against their better judgment, they decided to go. The next morning, Sarah and Laura drove to the truck stop on Route 17, a run-down spot with flickering neon signs and diesel fumes in the air. Truckers and travelers milled around, grabbing coffee and burgers. Sarah clutched the flyer, her stomach in knots. Inside, they showed the photo to the cashier, a tired woman with dyed blonde hair. "Ever seen this girl?" Laura asked the cashier. Squinted. "Maybe. Looks familiar, but we get tons of kids passing through. Check with Jerry, the night manager. He's got a knack for faces." Jerry was in the back sorting crates of soda. He studied the flyer, scratching his beard. "Yeah, I saw a girl like this a while back. Thin, quiet, with a guy who didn't let her talk much. They bought snacks and left quick." Sarah's pulse quickened. "What did the guy look like?" "Tall. Wore a cap kinda shady. Didn't like me looking at him." The man in the cap again. Sarah exchanged a glance with Laura. "Did you see where they went?" Laura asked. "Drove off in a white van," Jerry said. "Aw. That's all I got." Sarah's blood ran cold. Victor's van. She thanked Jerry and pulled Laura outside. "It's him," she said. "Victor's tied to this. We need to tell Harris." Laura was already dialing. "Harris, we're at the Route 17 truck stop. The manager saw a girl like Mia with a guy in a cap driving a white van. It's Victor's." Harris's voice crackled through the speaker. "I told you to stay out of this. Get back to town. We're sending a team." On the drive back, Sarah's mind churned. The pieces were falling into place. Victor, the drugs, the van, the man in the cap. But where were the girls? Were they still alive? The threatening call meant someone was watching, and they were getting desperate. Back in Willow Creek, Harris was furious but focused. "You two are lucky you didn't get hurt," he said at the station. "We pulled the truck stop's footage. It's grainy, but we've got a partial plate on the van. Matches Victor's." "So arrest him." Laura snapped. "Not yet," Harris said. "We need more, but we're tailing him closer now. He's meeting someone tonight, out by the old mill road." Sarah's heart sank. "What about the girl in the photo?" "We're working on it," Harris said. "If it's Mia, we'll find her." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat on her sister's couch, staring at the photo of her and the girls from the school dance. Mia's bright smile haunted her. "I'm getting closer," she whispered, as if Mia could hear. But the threat from the call lingered, making her jump at every creak in the house. The next day, Laura called a meeting in her garage. The volunteers were few, but their resolve was fierce. "Harris is closing in on Victor," Laura told them. "We need to keep the pressure on. Talk to anyone who's seen that van or the man in the cap." Emily and Chloe, against Laura's orders, had been asking around town. "We heard something," Emily said nervously. "A kid at school said his dad saw Victor's van out by a farm on Mill Road a few times." Laura's face tightened. "You're not supposed to be snooping. It's dangerous." "But it's something, right?" Chloe said. Sarah took the info to Harris, who was already on edge. "We know about Mill Road," he said. "We're watching a property out there, a farm tied to some shady deals. Victor's been seen there. We're planning a move, but it's got to be airtight." "A farm?" Sarah asked. "What's he doing there?" Harris hesitated. "We think it's a front. Could be drugs, could be worse. Stay out of it, Sarah." But staying out wasn't in Sarah's nature anymore. She and Laura drove by Mill Road that evening, keeping their distance. The farm was isolated, surrounded by fields and a rusty fence. Victor's van was parked near a barn, its lights off. A man in a cap stood nearby, talking to Victor. Sarah's heart raced. "That's him," she whispered. "We need to go," Laura said, her voice tense. "This is too big for us." They drove away, but Sarah couldn't shake the image of the farm. It felt like the answer was right there, just out of reach. She called Harris, leaving a voicemail. "Victor's at the farm on Mill Road. The man in the cap's with him. Please check it out." The next morning, Harris called her back. "We're moving on the farm," he said. "We've got enough." "To rate it. Stay in town, Sarah. This could get messy." Sarah hung up, her hands shaking with anticipation. The farm was the key. Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia, they could be there. After months of pain and dead ends, the truth was finally within reach. She just hoped it wasn't too late. Sarah Bennett's phone slipped from her hand as she processed Detective Tom Harris's words. "We're moving on the farm. Stay in town, Sarah. This could get messy." It was October 2005, and the disappearance of Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia had haunted Willow Creek for 4 months. The farm on Mill Road, where Victor Hayes and the man in the cap had been spotted, was their best lead yet. Sarah's heart pounded with hope and dread. Were the girls there? Were they alive? She couldn't sit still, but Harris's warning echoed, "Stay." Out of it, across town, Laura Carter was pacing in her garage, the search headquarters now down to a few loyal volunteers. Sarah rushed over, her voice urgent. "Harris is raiding the farm. They think it's tied to Victor's drug operation." Laura's eyes widened. "The girls, could they be there?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted, "but it's our first real shot." Laura grabbed her jacket. "I'm going to the station." "I need to know what's happening." Sarah hesitated. "Harris told us to stay put. It's dangerous." "Dangerous?" Laura snapped. "My daughter's been gone for months. I'm done waiting." They drove to the police station where the parking lot was buzzing with activity. Squad cars lined up, officers checking their gear. Harris spotted them and stormed over, his face tight. "What are you doing here? I told you to stay home." "We deserve to know," Laura said, her voice steady. "If my daughter's at that farm, I need to be here." Harris sighed. "We're working with the FBI. It's a big operation. You can wait here, but you're not going anywhere near that farm." Sarah and Laura sat in the station's waiting area, the clock ticking painfully slow. Sarah's mind raced, replaying every moment of that 4th of July, the girls' laughter. Her distraction with Chloe, the man in the cap. Guilt still clawed at her, but the thought of finding them kept her grounded. Laura gripped her hand, whispering, "They're coming home. They have to." At the farm, Harris and the FBI were moving in. The property was a sprawl of fields and old buildings, hidden behind a rusty fence on Mill Road. Victor's white van was parked near a barn, just as Sarah had seen. As dusk settled, officers in tactical gear crept through the shadows there, radios crackling. Harris led the team, his gut telling him this was more than a drug bust. Inside the barn they found what they expected, tables lined with chemicals, burners, and bags of white powder. A meth lab, just as Harris suspected, but something else caught his eye, a locked door at the back, leading to a basement. "Get this open," he ordered. An officer pried it loose, revealing a dark staircase. Harris descended, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of mold and chemicals. At the bottom, he froze. 3 girls, thin, pale, and terrified, huddled in a corner, Mia, Lily, and Ava. Their clothes were ragged, their faces gaunt, but they were alive. "It's okay," Harris said softly. "You're safe now." Mia, her eyes fierce despite her frailty, spoke first. "Where's Sophia?" Harris's heart sank. "We'll find her," he promised. Though he feared the worst, upstairs the raid was in full swing. Victor Hayes tried to bolt when the FBI stormed in, but they tackled him in the dirt. "I don't know anything about those girls," he shouted as cuffs snapped on his wrists. The man in the cap, identified as Victor's cousin Ray, was caught hiding in a shed. Both were hauled to the station, their operation crumbling. Back at the station, Sarah and Laura were losing patience. It had been hours with no word. Sarah paced, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. "Why is it taking so long?" she muttered. Laura stared at the door, her hands clenched. Finally, Harris walked in, his face unreadable. Sarah's breath caught. "Did you find them?" she asked. Harris nodded. "We found Mia, Lily, and Ava. They're alive. They're being taken to the hospital now," Laura gasped, tears streaming down her face. "Thank God," she whispered, grabbing Sarah's arm, but Harris's expression darkened. "Sophia, she didn't make it. She passed away a while back." "I'm sorry." The words hit like a punch. Sarah's knees buckled, and she sank into a chair. Laura sobbed, her joy for the living girls tangled with grief for Sophia. "How?" Laura choked out. Harris shook his head. "We're still piecing it together. The girls will tell us more when they're ready." Sarah's mind spun. 3 girls saved, but Sophia gone. She pictured Sophia's steady smile, the way she'd always rallied her friends. "I should have found them sooner," Sarah whispered, guilt flooding back. Laura wiped her tears. "You didn't give up. None of us did." They drove to the Key hospital, where ambulances had just arrived. Mia, Lily, and Ava were wheeled in, wrapped in blankets. Sarah and Laura waited in the lobby, their hearts in their throats. A doctor emerged after what felt like forever. "They're malnourished and exhausted," she said, "but they're stable. You can see them soon." When Sarah and Laura were allowed in, the sight broke their hearts. Mia sat up in her bed, her eyes sharp but tired. Lily was curled up, coughing weakly, her lungs damaged from the chemicals. Ava stared out the window, barely speaking, her spirit battered. Laura rushed to Mia, hugging her gently. "You're home, baby," she whispered. Sarah approached Lily, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, kiddo," she said. Lily managed a small smile. "You came for us, Miss Bennett. That's what matters." Mia spoke up, her voice hoarse. "They took us that day at the pool. Victor and that guy, Ray. They drugged us, brought us to the farm, made us work in the basement cooking their drugs. Sophia, she got sick. They wouldn't help her." Sarah's stomach churned. "Why didn't you escape?" "We tried," Mia said, "but they watched us all the time. Sophia died trying to protect us." Laura stroked Mia's hair, her face a mix of rage and sorrow. Sarah felt the weight of every missed chance, every moment she hadn't seen the truth. But the girls were here now, and that was a miracle. Harris joined them, updating the families. "Victor and Ray are in custody. We're searching the farm for more evidence. The girls' statements will help us nail these guys." "What about the others?" Sarah asked. "Was anyone else helping Victor?" "We're looking into it," Harris said. "This operation might go deeper than we thought." As night fell, Sarah and Laura stood outside the hospital watching the stars. The joy of finding Mia, Lily, and Ava was tempered by Sophia's loss. "We got 3 of them back," Laura said, her voice soft. "But it's not enough," Sarah nodded. "We need to make sure this never happens again." They didn't know it yet, but the fight was far from over. Victor's arrest was just the beginning, and the secrets of the farm were still unraveling. The hospital parking lot was quiet under the October 2005 night sky, the stars a faint comfort above Willow Creek. Sarah Bennett and Laura Carter stood side by side, their breath visible in the cool air. Inside, Mia, Lily, and Ava were safe, but scarred, rescued from a hidden basement at the farm on Mill Road. The joy of their return was overshadowed by the devastating news of Sophia Ruiz's death. Sarah's heart ached, torn between relief and guilt. "We got 3 of them back," Laura had said, her voice heavy, "but it's not enough." Sarah nodded, her resolve hardening. They needed answers and justice. Inside the hospital, the girls were resting, their families gathered close. Sarah and Laura slipped back into Mia's room, where the 16-year-old sat propped up in bed, her eyes sharp despite her frail frame. Laura sat beside her, holding her hand, while Sarah stood by the door, listening. Detective Tom Harris had just left, promising to return with updates on Victor Hayes and his cousin Ray, the men behind the girls' ordeal. But Mia was ready to talk now, and her words carried the weight of months in captivity. "They grabbed us at the pool," Mia said, her voice steady but low. "It was so fast. 1 minute, we were by the diving board laughing. Then this guy, Ray, came up, acting like he worked there. He said something about a lost kid needing help. We followed him to the back gate, and everything went blurry. Sarah's stomach churned. He drugged you? Mia nodded. Next thing I knew, we were in a van, tied up. They took us to the farm, locked us in that basement. Victor was in charge. He said if we worked, we'd stay alive. Laura's grip tightened on Mia's hand. Worked? How? Cooking drugs, Mia said. Mixing chemicals, packing bags. They watched us every second. If we slowed down, they'd yell, or worse. Her voice cracked. Sophia, she fought back the most. She tried to plan an escape, but they caught her. She got sick after that. Coughing, weak. They wouldn't get her a doctor. She died right there, in the dark. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She pictured Sophia, the girl who always kept her friends strong, fading away in that awful place. I'm so sorry, Mia, she whispered. Mia looked at her, fierce despite her pain. You didn't do this, Miss Bennett? They did. Lily in the next bed stirred. Her cough was rough, her lungs damaged from the chemicals. Sophia told us to keep going, she said softly. She said you'd find us. Ava, silent until now, spoke from her corner. I thought we'd never get out, she said, her voice barely audible. I stopped believing. Laura wiped her eyes. You're here now. You're safe. But her face hardened. Victor's going to pay for this. All of them will. Harris returned later, his notebook full. The girls' statements are helping, he said. We're building a case against Victor and Ray for kidnapping, drug trafficking, and manslaughter for Sophia's death. The farm's a gold mine of evidence, chemicals, equipment, even some of the girls' belongings. Sarah's heart skipped. Their belongings? Clothes, a bracelet with Sophia's name, Harris said. We're still searching the property. He paused, his expression grim. There's more. Victor's not working alone. We found records at the farm, coded ledgers, names, drop points. This is bigger than a small-town meth lab. We're bringing in the DEA to trace the network. Laura's voice was ice. Who else is involved? We don't know yet, Harris said. Some pool staff might have looked the other way, maybe took bribes. We're questioning everyone. Sarah's mind flashed to the pool, the storage room, Victor's slick demeanor, the man in the cap. What about the guy who called me telling me to back off? She asked. We're tracing it, Harris said. Could be Ray or someone higher up. Victor's not talking, but Ray's starting to crack. The next day, the hospital released Mia, Lily, and Ava to their families, though they'd need ongoing care. Sarah and Laura helped them settle at home, where tears and hugs mixed with quiet moments of grief. Emily and Chloe visited, their relief at seeing their friends tempered by Sophia's absence. We should have been with you, Emily said, her voice breaking. Mia hugged her. You couldn't have known. Willow Creek was reeling. News of the rescue spread fast, and the town's mood shifted from apathy to outrage. Reporters swarmed the police station, and Laura gave a statement outside her house. We got our girls back, but we lost Sophia, she said, her voice steady. This isn't over until every person responsible is behind bars. Sarah, still crashing on her sister's couch, felt the weight of the fight ahead. She visited the girls daily, bringing books for Mia, art supplies for Ava, and music for Lily to lift their spirits. But the guilt lingered. I should have seen it, she told Laura one night. Victor was right there, and I missed it. Laura shook her head. You kept pushing. That's why we found them. Harris's investigation was picking up speed. Ray, desperate to cut a deal, started talking. He admitted Victor ran the meth operation, using the pool as a front to move drugs. The farm was their main lab, and they'd targeted the girls because they were young, easy to control, and wouldn't be missed right away. Victor said no one would look too hard, Ray confessed. He was wrong. The DEA raided Victor's house, finding more ledgers and a burner phone with calls to unknown numbers. We're closing in on his contacts, Harris told Sarah. And Laura. But these guys are careful. It's going to take time. Sarah couldn't wait. She went back to the pool, now closed and taped off by police. Standing by the gate, she pictured the girls' last moments there, happy, unaware of the Danger. A groundskeeper, an older man named Pete, approached her. "You're that teacher, right?" he said. Sarah nodded. "Did you ever see anything weird? Victor, the van? Anything?" Pete hesitated. "I saw him moving boxes at night sometimes. Thought it was pool stuff. Now, I'm not so sure." Sarah passed the tip to Harris, who added it to the growing case. But the real bombshell came a week later. The DEA traced one of Victor's contacts to a trucking company linked to the Route 17 truck stop, the same place where the flyer with Mia's photo had surfaced. "This isn't just local," Harris said. "We're talking a regional network, maybe bigger." Laura's face was grim. "They used our town as their playground. How many other kids did they hurt?" "We're finding out," Harris said. "The girls' testimony is key. They saw things, faces, routines. It's helping us map the operation." Sarah felt a mix of hope and dread. The truth was coming into focus, but it was uglier than she'd imagined. Victor and Ray were just the start. There were others out there hiding in plain sight, and they weren't done fighting. As she left the station, her phone buzzed with a text from Laura. "Meet me at the garage. We're planning a vigil for Sophia." Sarah drove through Willow Creek, the town's lights glowing softly. The fight for justice was far from over, but the vigil would be a step toward healing for the girls, their families, and a town that had lost its innocence. Sarah Bennett's car rumbled through the quiet streets of Willow Creek, the glow of streetlights casting shadows on her tired face. Laura Carter's text, "Meet me at the garage. We're planning a vigil for Sophia," had pulled her out of her thoughts. It was late October 2005, and the rescue of Mia, Lily, and Ava from the farm on Mill Road had shaken the town. But Sophia Ruiz's death hung heavy, a wound that wouldn't heal. As Sarah drove, she felt the weight of the fight ahead. Victor Hayes and his cousin Ray were in custody, but their drug network was bigger than anyone had imagined. Justice was coming, but it wasn't here yet. At Laura's garage, the search headquarters was alive again. Volunteers bustled, stringing fairy lights and folding programs for the vigil. Laura stood at her whiteboard, now covered with plans for the event. "We're doing this for Sophia," she said, as Sarah walked in, "to honor her and show the girls we're still here for them." Sarah nodded, her throat tight. "When's it happening?" "Tomorrow night at the park," Laura said. "The whole town's invited. We want everyone to remember." Emily and Chloe were there, helping with decorations. Their faces were brighter since their friend's rescue, but Sophia's loss lingered in their eyes. "Miss Bennett, can we say something at the vigil?" Emily asked. "Of course," Sarah said, managing a smile. Sophia would have loved that. The next day, Sarah visited the girls at their homes. Mia was back with her family, diving into books to catch up on school. "I want to be a lawyer," she told Sarah, her voice fierce, "so I can stop people like Victor." Lily, still coughing from her damaged lungs, was listening to music, finding comfort in the melodies. Ava, quieter than ever, was sketching in her notebook, her drawings dark but beautiful. "It helps me process," she said softly. Sarah brought them each a small gift, a journal for Mia, headphones for Lily, colored pencils for Ava. "You're so strong," she told them, her eyes misty. "I'm proud of you," Mia hugged her. "You didn't give up on us. That's why we're here." That evening, Willow Creek's park was transformed. Hundreds of people gathered, holding candles that flickered in the dusk. The missing posters were gone, replaced by a banner with Sophia's smiling face and the words, "In loving memory." Laura stood on a small stage, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. Sophia Ruiz was a daughter, a friend, a fighter. She kept her friends. Strong in the darkest times, we're here to honor her and to promise that her death won't be in vain. Emily and Chloe took the stage next, their voices shaking but clear. "Sophia was the best of us," Emily said. "She never stopped believing we'd get out. We'll carry her with us always." Chloe added, "We love you, Sophia. Thank you for watching over us." The crowd was silent, tears glinting in the candlelight. Sarah stood at the back, her heart full and broken. She thought of the pool, the day she lost the girls, and how hard they'd fought to come home. When Laura called her to the stage, she hesitated, but stepped forward. "I failed the girls that day," she said, her voice cracking. "But they never gave up, and neither will we. This fight's for them, and for Sophia." The vigil ended. With a moment of silence, the candles glowing like stars. As people dispersed, Sarah and Laura stayed, watching the flames flicker out. "This town's waking up," Laura said. "They're angry now. That's good," Sarah nodded. "Victor's just the start. We need everyone behind bars." The next morning, Sarah met Detective Tom Harris at the station. The case was moving fast. Victor and Ray were facing charges for kidnapping, drug trafficking, and manslaughter for Sophia's death. Ray, desperate for a lighter sentence, was spilling more details. "He says Victor reported to someone higher up," Harris explained. "A guy running the show from out of state. The DEA's tracking him, but it's tricky." Sarah's eyes widened. "So there's a bigger boss?" "Looks like it," Harris said. "The ledgers from the farm point to a network stretching across California. The pool was a hub, small enough to stay under the radar, big enough to move product." Harris showed her a photo of a man linked to the trucking company from the Route 17 truck stop, where Mia's flyer had surfaced. "This is Carl Watts, a middleman. We think he's the one who called you, warning you to back off." Sarah's stomach twisted. "Is he still out there?" "For now," Harris said. "But we're closing in." The girls' statements were proving crucial. Mia remembered overhearing Victor and Ray talk about the boss and deliveries to a warehouse in Sacramento. Lily recalled a man visiting the farm, someone Victor was scared of. Ava, through her sketches, provided details of the basement and the faces she'd seen. "They're tough kids," Harris said. "Their testimony's going to bury these guys." Sarah and Laura kept the pressure on, rallying the town to demand justice. Laura started a petition for stricter oversight at public pools, gaining hundreds of signatures. "No one should go through this," she told a local reporter. Sarah, inspired by the girls, began volunteering at a community center, helping kids stay safe. But she couldn't shake the fear that the network's boss was still out there watching. One afternoon, Pete, the pool groundskeeper, called Sarah. "I found something," he said nervously. "In the storage room, behind some boxes. It's a bag with stuff." Sarah met him at the pool, now a crime scene taped off by police. Pete led her to a corner where a small duffel bag was hidden. Inside were more of the girls' belongings, a hair tie, a notebook with Lily's name, a charm bracelet. Sarah's heart sank. "This is theirs," she said, her voice trembling. She called Harris, who sent a team to collect the bag. "This ties Victor to the girls even tighter," he said. "We're almost ready for trial." As November loomed, the town prepared for the legal battle. Sarah and Laura visited the girls, who were slowly rebuilding their lives. Mia was studying for her GED, Lily was seeing a specialist for her lungs, and Ava was starting therapy to process her trauma. "We want to testify," Mia told them. "For Sophia." Sarah hugged her. "You're braver than anyone I know." But the fight wasn't over. The DEA was closing in on Carl Watts and the mysterious boss, but they were slippery. Sarah felt a chill, knowing the network's reach was still out there. As she left Mia's house, her phone buzzed with a text from Harris. "Trial date set. Girls will testify. Be ready." Sarah drove home, the weight of the past months heavy, but lifting. The vigil had united the town, and the girls' courage was fueling the fight. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, for Mia, Lily, Ava, and Sophia. Sarah Bennett's phone glowed in the dim light of her sister's living room, Detective Tom Harris's text burning into her eyes. "Trial date set. Girls will testify. Be ready." It was November 2005, and Willow Creek was gearing up for the fight of its life. Mia, Lily, and Ava, rescued from a hidden drug lab on Mill Road, were ready to face Victor Hayes and his cousin Ray in court. Sofia Ruiz's death fueled their resolve, and Sarah felt a mix of pride and fear. The trial would bring justice, but it would also reopen wounds. As she set her phone down, she whispered, "We're almost there, girls." The next morning, Sarah met Laura Carter at her garage, the heart of their search for months. The whiteboard, once covered with leads, now held a schedule for the trial and notes for supporting the girls. Laura was organizing a community rally outside the courthouse to show the town stood with Mia, Lily, and Ava. "This isn't just about our girls," Laura said, pinning up a flyer. "It's about making sure this never happens again." Sarah nodded. "They're so brave. Testifying can't be easy." "They're doing it for Sofia," Laura said, her voice steady but soft. The trial began on a cold December morning. The Willow Creek courthouse was packed, locals and reporters filling every seat. Sarah and Laura sat in the front row, their hands clasped. Mia, Lily, and Ava entered, looking small but determined in their simple dresses. Emily and Chloe were there too, offering quiet support. The girls' families flanked them, a wall of love against the storm ahead. Victor Hayes and Ray sat at the defense table, their faces blank. Victor's slick charm was gone, replaced by a tense jaw. Ray looked defeated, his plea deal forcing him to testify against his cousin. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ellen Torres, laid out the case: kidnapping, drug trafficking, and manslaughter for Sofia's death. "These men preyed on 4 young girls," she said, her voice ringing. "They used their power to silence them, but today those girls will be heard." Mia took the stand first. Her voice was clear, though her hands shook. She described the 4th of July, how Ray lured them to the pool's back gate, how they woke up in the van, how Victor forced them to work in the basement lab. "Sofia kept us strong," she said, tears falling. "She died because they wouldn't help her." The courtroom was silent, jurors wiping their eyes. Lily went next, her cough punctuating her words. "We were scared, but Sofia told us to hold on. She said someone would come." She looked at Sarah, a faint smile breaking through. Ava's testimony was quieter, her voice barely above a whisper. "I stopped hoping," she admitted, "but Sofia never did." Her sketches of the basement, shown as evidence, chilled the room. Sarah's heart broke and swelled with each word. She glanced at Laura, whose tears mirrored her own. The girl's courage was a light in the darkness, shining for Sofia. Ray's testimony sealed Victor's fate. He admitted Victor ran the operation, targeting the girls because they were easy to control. "I didn't want to hurt them," Ray mumbled, but the jury's glare said they weren't buying it. Victor took the stand, claiming he was just a businessman, unaware of the girls' plight. But Torres tore into him, presenting the ledgers, the girls' belongings, and the pool's drug stash. "You ran a drug empire and enslaved 4 children," she said. "You let Sofia Ruiz die." Victor's lies crumbled, his face pale, as the jury took notes. After a week, the verdict came fast. Guilty on all counts. Victor was sentenced to life without parole, Ray to 25 years. The courtroom erupted in applause, families hugging through. Tears. Outside, the town's rally roared, signs reading "Justice for Sofia" waving high. Sarah and Laura embraced, the weight of months lifting, though Sofia's loss lingered. The trial wasn't the end. The DEA, using the girls' testimony, tracked down Carl Watts, the trucking company middleman who'd threatened Sarah. He led them to the network's boss, a dealer in Sacramento, arrested in a sting. The operation was dismantled, piece by piece, ensuring no other town would suffer like Willow Creek. The girls began to heal. Mia enrolled in community college, aiming for law school. Lily's lungs improved with treatment, and she started a blog about her music, dedicating it to Sofia. Ava's art became her voice. Her paintings shone at a local gallery. They visited each other often, their bond unbreakable. Emily and Chloe, now closer than ever, joined them, rebuilding their friendship. Sarah found her purpose again. She returned to teaching, this time at a community center, coaching kids and teaching them to stay safe. "You're stronger than you know," she told them, echoing the girls' resilience. Laura launched the Sophia Ruiz Foundation, raising funds for victims of trafficking. The town rallied behind it, their guilt for moving on too soon turning into action. One spring day in 2006, Sarah and Laura organized a memorial at the park where Sophia's vigil had been held. The girls, their families, and hundreds of locals gathered. A small tree was planted, a plaque reading, "For Sophia, our light." Mia spoke, her voice strong. "Sophia taught us to fight. We're living for her now." Lily and Ava placed flowers at the tree, their smiles soft but real. Sarah looked out at the crowd, her heart full. The pain of that 4th of July would never fade, but the girls' strength had changed Willow Creek. They'd turned loss into hope, fear into courage. As the sun set, Sarah whispered to the sky, "We did it, Sophia. We brought them home." The town wasn't perfect, but it was healing, and so were they all.